Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Gauntlet Reading Club. Today we're going to be discussing Cassandra Khaw's space crime opera uh, novel, The All-Consuming World, about a bunch of clones slash criminals slash, yeah, slash newly human AI data form, uh, and who are planning one of the biggest to steal an entire planet from the AI overlords that rule the galaxy. Uh, yeah, I think we're going to go around first before we jump into things, do a quick round of introductions. We'll start with me, and I never know how Zoom looks to the rest of you, but we'll go to Leandro and then Maria, because that's what it looks like on my screen. I'm Steven, he, him. Uh, uh, I I read this book a while back, and I was going to finish reading it a second time for this club, but then multiple family members got COVID, so that took precedence. So my memory for the first half is really good. My memory for the second half is a little bit hazier right now. But I really enjoyed this. I don't like to, I hate to typecast Leandro, but like I was really happy to have Leandro in this group because I was kind of like, these are all Leandro characters, aren't they? they're all just sad exes with each other. But yeah, I really like, this is one of my favorite books that came out last year. It is such a wild, like, just unnecessary, like kind of maximalist, like just full on, we're gonna go purple prose with every single line. That is just, I really loved. But yeah, continuing around clockwise, Leandro, if you want to introduce yourself.
I don't know how I can introduce myself after that. I feel like people can get a sense then what I like. But hello, hi. My name's Andrew. I use he, him pronouns. And yeah, so this is my first time reading anything by Cassandra Khaw. I had checked out one of her other books or one of her novellas, Nothing But Black and Teeth. But as time it is, I didn't have time to read it. So I just had the time to read this. And Steven's not wrong in that. Oh yeah, I feel like yeah, I played this one. Oh yeah, no, I did have plans to play an ex pop star in a Scum and Villainy game a long time ago, or at least a pop star of sorts, criminal. Yeah, and yeah, it was. I have certain thoughts about it in terms of turning into a role playing game, but as a book itself, it was enthralling. It was, it was I guess visceral. I should say I really enjoyed it. I'm not just using adjectives to skate over my opinion of it, but I really did enjoy it. It. There's a there's a not pomp, but kind of like um there's a different attitude to not just the way it's written, but the way its ideas and the way it presents its ideas. And that is kind of like hard to tear your eyes, hard to tear yourself away from. It's enthralling in its abrasiveness. I should say a lot of swearing as well, which is just great. Further thoughts, but we'll dig into that as we talk.
Cool. And Maria.
Hello, I'm Maria. I use she, her pronouns. I did just finish reading this book like yesterday, so it is fresh in my mind. I also really enjoyed this book. The way it's written, I think you said maximalist, and that like captures exactly how I feel about like the prose, the writing. I have read other books by Cassandra Khaw, and like they were fine, but like this one was like, yes, this is the book by Cassandra Khaw that I like the most, I think. Particularly because of just like how like nothing was held back from it, like just the violence and the like sterileness of the characters and just like the horrible vibes between all of these people. It was like found family but make it toxic. Was it was like it was great. It was grand. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. And then I was like, oh, yes, this would be very fun to explore more in different ways. But yeah, it was a great book, and people have said all the things about it already.
Yeah, and to kind of wrap things, this reading group is hosted through the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet, for folks who don't know, is an online gaming community, mostly focusing on games of the indie and OSR variety. Uh, uh, it publishes a zine called The Codex, as well as several gaming podcasts. But for the folks here tonight, the most important part is the gaming calendar, which this and many other games are hosted through every month. If you are interested in joining a game, the calendar is open to non-members, so feel free to jump on over there for the link below if you are interested in playing with any of the folks here tonight or any of the other people on the Gauntlet. But yeah, usually this is the part of the spiel where I would introduce more of the safety tools, but this is going to be more of a discussion. Like, I think the main thing to remember is that even though it's a discussion, we still have the open door policy. You are free to step away whenever you feel like. Obviously, letting us know if and when you'll be back is less important because we are just talking as opposed to kind of doing something in a kind of more formalized space of a game. I also feel like the X card can still be useful in these discussions if we're kind of edging into like an area where that makes you uncomfortable to talk about, or that you want to put some brakes on. I feel like the X card or pause are good tools to pull in here. Just if anybody needs to kind of outline their boundaries during the discussion. But yeah, so yeah, as I said, had a lot of fun with this book. And I think it's something that you hit on, Maria, that there is a lot in this book about found families, but the kind of, like, I guess for me, like, it's definitely saying you brought up the dynamic of what makes the found family of the Dirty Dozen. That's the name they go with, right? And then a whole bunch of them have died at this point. uh is that a lot of found families a lot of found family fiction I found has a tendency to sort of make found family always sort of a like focus on the positive elements of found family, and often kind of not so much obfuscate, but kind of hand wave some of the more toxic things that can be found in found family. Like, I was just reading Crisis Zone, which is like the final book or the latest book I'm forgetting by who, but it focuses on Meg and Mog, and it is basically just a really, really toxic found family of just terrible people. That like for me made this book, like, its willingness to let the characters be terrible to each other was one of the things that made this feel very truthful in a way that sometimes I feel like found family books can sometimes get a little saccharine.
I mean, I saw Leandra unmute, so I was like,
Okay, sorry, so I unmute as well. I was like, all right, well, this was originally your point, so I didn't know if you had any one more to build on what Steven said.
No, I guess I was just gonna say, like, yeah, like, it definitely, there's like the mess of their original relationships, but I think with this too, there's like the additional mess of like, you have like, this is them coming back together after a long time. So like whatever mess they had before, I feel like the addition of like a time element to that just like exploded out all of the different, like the knots and the chaos in their relationships with each other. So that was like another thing I thought was cool about this, is that there was like this thing in the past and they were all together then, and like they're coming back together now kind of, but they have all of this built up drama and like pent up feelings about each other that now they're just getting to express.
Yeah, it really feels it is taking the found family kind of trope and like extending beyond that, you know, like a proper, not exactly like a extreme deconstruction, but like just like, you know, getting past the whole coming together and getting to the and now what kind of like part, especially after everything has broken, after the Dirty Dozen had broken up, because usually with that kind of stuff, you know, it's a traumatic event, and we kind of like find out what kind of like drove them apart, and then in those 40 and those the 40 years and that time gap, people by themselves just kind of realizing, oh wait, no, this situation was messed up. We were clones who were banded together to fight for ourselves, but our leader, no, was a lot, let's say, was a piece of work.
Yeah, like
let's
our
say.
leader basically told us all who we were supposed to be. And so we had to like basically break up with her so we could actually all like figure out who we actually wanted to be.
Yeah, and oh man, there was that scene when they all kind of come together and two of them kind of like reveal to the other two how their identities have like shifted, or how that they've found more about themselves after they had left. And seeing their leader, we should say her name. Her name's Rita. Her response to that being just so, it's just whatever. You should, even if you told me that.
Like
I
I'm
never
owning
cared,
up
like,
to my faults, but only because it's
Mhm.
useful to me in this moment.
yeah, and Verdigre calls her out in that. Like, no, that wasn't an apology. You're not apologizing to us. Um, and God, it's also like, it's all very frayed, I guess. It's like, I guess that's part of like, we talked about the verbosity of this, the language of it. It really feels like a lot is teetering, not just because there's just so much, not just because there's, you know, the writing itself, there's so many words, there's so many like just random use of terms, but it really helps make things feel precarious, and it kind of really underscores again the precariousness of these relationships. Like, you don't really get a sense of like what they were to each other until like, yeah, getting closer to the end, and they're kind of remembering who they were to each other, and they finally realize, oh, Rita is a monster who I mean, okay, everyone except for Maya had realized that already.
I mean,
It's
even Maya
like,
realizes that.
Yeah.
She just like I love her because she's a monster.
Yeah.
um,
There's like that, there's like, I was taking like pictures of the like words in the book and sending it to people, but like one of the first things I clipped was like, this is a book that is gonna like destroy me, maybe, was like loyalty in a nutritional paste or something, like the like just the manufacturedness of like all of the loyalty and the feeling that Maya had for Rita. Like the like, I guess it's hard to get a sense, or at least I don't have a great sense of how much of that same like chemical manipulation of feelings of whatever happened to the rest of the clones, but because we don't really see as much from their perspectives. But like for Maya, we definitely can see that like what Rita is to her is like possibly just, it just can just like put in there. Like it would be interesting to know how much of the rest of the crew, like, was there anything that was ever not like just chemically implanted love, or was it all just like
Yeah,
that?
like I reached the end of the novel and I still was not even certain, is like what, like, was this whole thing about like them coming after the clones, was that actually ever a thing? Like I just like I feel like it's like you like Rita lies about everything, but like was that actually a thing that was happening here, or were they just or was that just a thing Rita was lying about the entire time?
well, there was that, yeah. Well, the aid ship was there to try to kill
Yeah.
Verdigris. Like, so there might have been something there,
Yeah,
but
there might have
uh,
been, but it's like
yeah,
there's no evidence that like there like that this programmatic plan that she claimed the aid ships were going on was actually a thing.
it could have just been that one aid ship.
Yes.
was being a bit of a pissy brat in that concert. But I had a thought. But yeah, at the end, like it almost kind of doesn't matter because they're in that situation. Their dead friend is back, who's here to like, and they almost kind of just shunt Reed off stage. It's just like, yeah, no, you know what? Fuck off. Sorry, are we allowed to swear in this?
Look, you can swear. We're
I'm
reading a
sorry.
book that basically uses fuck every other sentence.
As an affirmation
not
at
every.
the end. Not every sentence, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, at that point, at the end, like when their backs are against the wall, they just like kind of shove Reed off stage and being like, you know what, it kind of doesn't matter. You've been terrible to us. So just sit there in the corner. We'll figure ourselves out of the mess we made. In a way, like as much as we talk about how it's a found family that's gone toxic, the whole arc of the book is them refinding that family again by the end of it. It's not the same as was before. In fact, it's even more like fractured or confused. I mean, one of them, gives up their life to buy them time, but at the end, when like they're all taking control of the MacGuffin, and their backs against the wall, they're all together again. It's almost like kind of deconstructing it, but kind of reconstructing it and putting it all back together and being like, oh yeah, no, this is why. This is kind of like a trope that's endured. Yes, yeah, there are parts of it that suck, that can suck and probably do suck. But no, here are the parts as well that make it why it kind of like resonates with a lot of folks.
Yeah. And I'm thinking now, like, because of the way that you, Marie, kind of framed this as like the found family element, which wasn't first thinking through. Like, it's making me think about like recently how there are like a lot of like queer breakup novels that have been like a thing that I've noticed coming out a lot more of recently, like Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Mariko Tamaki, and Stone Fruit by, I want to say, Lee Lai. I need to look up that last name. I think that is probably wrong.
I wish I could chime in experience. All I read are comic books these days.
No, yes, I'm actually correct. That is the name of the writer.
Yeah,
because like Stone Fruit was sort of like, I jumped into this like moving in with you, like because I was like in an abusive situation before, and I feel like that's definitely kind of like the like queer relationship thing to sort through of like, what, like, are we in this relationship because I want to be, or because like the other options are like just living with my like trauma by myself. And I definitely feel like that's the feel of the relationships of these characters.
Yeah, I was like, I hadn't thought about it through that lens, but like, yeah, like the shared trauma that they've gone through and the shared trauma that like they've been forced through. It's not, it's not clear to me how common this is in the world that it's set in. Like, I hope that there are not other crews out there of clones that are like forced to like kill each other, or whatever it was Rita made them do. Like, but yeah, like have like them being together, having had that, like, is there anyone else that they could share it with? But then that does make me think about like the one of the moments that was like super sweet in the book, where we see like Rochelle's family and like the like another family that's outside of like the Dirty Dozen, where it's kind of like someone working through that trauma, I guess, or like finding something outside of it alone. So like, yeah, But that yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did love that sequence because it did kind of show the point that like there is an alternative to how the Dirty Dozen did it, which is, you know, the whole um fuck you, we're together, burn our way through the world kind of like mentality. And it showed one of them finding that alternative, and finding their own peace. And really that's what everyone kind of did when they all kind of like broke apart. Everyone found kind of like their own thing and trying to deal with that trauma. And it does make me wonder if like there are other like groups of like clones who have done what the Dirty Dozen did, but you know, that come off as bad. But I guess in that universe, the way like cloning is framed and the way humanity is framed is almost kind of like pets of these like horrible incandescent AI gods. Like you can't. It's hard to hope for a particularly nice. I mean, obviously it's possible, but it does seem like you're at the mercy of this rather cruel kind of like world. Uh, yeah, I guess the main point is like there are better there are better ways to process trauma than like flinging it at each other and using it to fuel each other's murder drive through the universe. Because it does go too far. Like when they broke up, we get um two of their friends that died horribly, and they don't really come together until there's the chance to make it right to one of those friends, to Elise, and that's what kind of like brings them out of their different ways of processing through that experience, is the chance to make it up to someone who definitely deserved better, which is nice. I will say it did take a while for me to warm up to the book when it got to that point, because the openings are it's so much. It really just here's the deal. Here's paragraphs full of like just descriptions of like very visceral descriptions of body language, of like fluids, of like maximalist, as you said, Stephen. It's very it's very like detailed, I guess. And the kind of like the way it almost kind of doesn't make you forget like, oh, these are bodies, this is like flesh and blood, as much as they've been like sutured and stitched apart and cloned and put back together. There's like that organic component of it always. And I think part of the way the book is written, it doesn't really make you forget that, which in a way contrasts with the horrible AI gods, who are also described in maximalist ways, but in like very more alien, more kind of like weird terms, like the way they turn things like subroutines and algorithms and processors into like organic like fleshy like functions. It's a lot. Basically, I'm saying I really like the verbosity of it. Oh, actually, there's one example of verbosity that I think I did go a bit. That I did have to laugh when I read it. It was at Verdigris concert when the lights go out and the darkness was described as the tenebrosity of it all, and I'm like, okay, I've enjoyed this, but you've gone too far, Cassandra Khaw. You can, I doubt that expression exists, but okay, all right, I guess it exists now.
We create language from nothing. No, yeah, I liked I was like, there are a lot of times where I was like, is this a word that's used? I don't care anymore. It sounds great. The vibes from this word are excellent.
I just looked it up. It is an actual word. Well, thanks for teaching me something, Cassandra Khaw.
Yeah. And you do, because you bring up the AI, and that was the other thing that I found kind of interesting and neat, was like, Oh, I'm just kind of thinking through this because I don't want to go full on like, oh yeah, I kind of studied this in grad school and go on a rant about that. But like the way that like the AIs were always these sorts of like they were always these like self-awarely like walking archives, like that was their thing, like that, like the difficulty of making something original, and instead like always like openly like referencing these like these like lines and deliveries from old films or music and things like that, that was really kind of interesting and neat, particularly when you kind of think about the way that that reflects on how Elise is, that like as data, her memories become like this explicit like archive of information that she has to keep summoning up to like reconstitute who she is.
It really does kind of like poke about the whole theme of that whole theme of like, yeah, what makes sapiens, or like, yeah, what makes sentience, because because clearly like, yeah, the AIs have kind of like their own personalities, but the way they're described, yeah, they are kind of like just, they are clumped up together, different bits um of like, yeah, references of like data, like called from humanity's past and whatnot, and the way that contrasts, yeah, with Elise, who's basically a ghost, in their in what do you call it, the conversation, yeah, where all the minds come together, um and the way that, yeah, she can kind of like, the way she like reaffirms her own identity is like, yeah, true innocuous details, like, yeah, her memories, like small stuff, like what her comrades have told her, like the bits of advice they've told her, or like memories like, I think there was one where like, yeah, about a box of cigarillos that she stole, um and 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 how, actually I just remembered, yeah, all of Elise's chapters are written in the first person as well, um which makes sense given her position in the narrative. I do like that contrast, especially like compared to our other POVs, which was, I think, Maya, who is there's a lot going on there, and there's Pimento, I love the Pepper AI. I have to say, if I wish I wanted more, I could have wanted to know more about their deal. Why is he called Pimento? Um, why why was he like just so? He is kind of like sketched like a very curious like mind. He's ping ponging around these different like folks, just trying to help. And I was never really, I guess like he just wanted data and
Like
sorry, yeah.
yeah, my impression is that he was a hustler. He was trying to
Mm.
like find the best hustle to like get the to like advance, you know, sort of, it's nebulous, but I guess you could say like his social class among the AIs, like get a better like get more processing powers so that he could like have more of a self, I guess, because that was sort of the thing. But you're right. I definitely agree that Pimento was kind of like, he was there to give a perspective to like explain how the AI like civilization worked, but like he didn't really have a purpose beyond that.
It was a way to bail to bail out the Dirty Dozen when things
Yeah.
got rough at the end. And yeah, I think maybe because I really did enjoy his perspective. And I wish I could have gotten more about um why exactly he was doing this. I guess merging with Elise to have all that beautiful human data, that no other, like proper like human data, not just like what humans recorded. Was a bit of reward. Like you said, yeah, he's a hustler. He wants to know all the best stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think
and
it's like oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Go.
And I think it's like referenced specifically that he sort of comes from like the AIs have sort of all these different like factions. And I guess he comes from like the specific, like they call it the competitive, which I took as like the capitalist faction of the AI. Because like it's explicitly like if he doesn't like advance and like move up in the world, he'll just be broken down and like recycled to like make some new to like make some 2.0 designs. And that's kind of like the threat that's hanging over him.
Yeah. Well,
I feel-
oh, go ahead, Maria.
I was gonna say, like, I kind of feel like it's like there's more in common between like the clones and like the AI. Also, like, because it's like the AI is like data like generated from like humans and all of the things that they collect to become whatever they are. But like the clones are also at this point like they've been like like recycled. They're like new bodies, bits and pieces, and like they keep uploading like their mind, like themselves to the conversation, I think is how I was reading it, and then like
Yeah.
or uploading it somewhere and then like re-downloading it, so I want to say. And like in a way I feel like they're the clones and Pimento maybe, or maybe other AI, like have very similar uh trajectories through life, except that like the clones are human and organic and like the lesser of the two groups now because they have taken over everything. But
Yeah.
like they have a lot of similarities too. Like I think
Yeah. Because like there's definitely a degree, like if we take some of Pimento's anxieties as representative of like other AI, that like their anxiety is that like they're never actually more than just like descendants of humans. That like they need to like prove somehow that they have this like thing that like like consciousness, like this makes us more than the animals around us. Like that's like the anxious thing that the AI want to prove, that like we're this thing more than just this like data collection process.
Yeah, and I think like they almost kind of disprove it by just showing how idiosyncratic and tunneled into their own like weirdnesses they are, because that's kind of really human. Like I was thinking of the other 8 ships that show up, like specifically the Eaters or the Bethel, like the Thorn Queen or the Butcher of 8, who enjoys verdigris concert, but is also a giant, horrible organic church ship who's all about destroying planets, and yet this he's always described as like obsessively kind of like cultivating this image of being this heavy metal death god.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, you don't need to do that really if you're like better than humans. I almost get a sense like the way they say they're better than humans is they're just the ones in charge. They're
Yeah.
just the ones in power. Like there's nothing really about their thought processes that makes them better, other than they have the privilege of power.
Hmm. I yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask a question that's like slightly related. So if your thing is more closely
No,
related,
mine isn't
okay.
related.
So the thing I was gonna ask, like, is did y'all get like a sense of what the age ships were, or like are like,
They were just
because
they were like basically like massive Death Stars,
so were they
like
like
bigger than Death Stars
created by
even.
the AI, or like
I think that's
was it something
basically,
that was
yes,
like
stated that
remnants
like
from?
at a certain point the AI started making other AI, they
Okay,
said.
okay.
And so
Yeah.
the age ships were basically the masterpieces, or at least like
Okay.
they were the things that got so big that even the other AI are kind of like, oh shit, how do we deal with these things?
And is the age and the age ships related to like age, like as an age of time, or like age as in old? or
Oh
no?
yeah, I don't know about
Like,
that. That's
what is that?
not really necessarily explained. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just like, I must have missed it, like where it was very much explained what they were, because I was like, age ship, like generation ship,
Yeah,
no, that can't be like.
I definitely could see both of those early definitions you see make sense, because there's
Yeah.
definitely the implication that for like AI that are not the age ships, they don't get to live forever. They are explicitly killed by bigger AI when they're no longer useful.
Yeah, they're not like all like minds with a capital M. Yeah, it might have been explained in the book. The way it was written, sometimes things just kind of like pass you over. I remember like getting to the end of Verdigree's first conversation with Maya, and then they just dropped the thing that Verdigree has multiple mouths. I'm like, wait, what the? Did I miss something? Wait, where is that described? The Verdigree had multiple mouths.
So that's how they multi-vocalize. That's
Yeah,
in their songs.
yeah, but the way it was kind of like written was like it had mentioned, it been mentioned already, because
Mhm.
because I remember that chapter ended with like Verdigris smiling on all mouths. I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean mouths? I did have to turn back a bit. But that's a consequence of me speed reading through the book to get it done for today. But yeah, I do find it interesting that the AI have their own hierarchy. They're really just not above it all. Um, like they have their age ships, they have their minds in their conversation. They have the merchant mind, who's explicitly like not out like a rogue mind, who's like outside the conversation. And we have Dear Pimento, um, and we have like again our maximalist death gods, like Butcher of Eight. Um,
I'll give a hint. The names like the Butcher of Eight and Thorn Queen were definitely one of the reasons I thought of a Ray game for this.
I wonder which one. I mean, this seems. I mean, we're gonna talk about the game later, but this seems like this seems like Ray's jam. Really, this kind of evocative death world.
Things that
Um,
want to devour other things, like
yeah,
consume.
angry, broken people ping ponging
Uh-huh.
off each other. That doesn't invoke anything by them at all. No.
And also like the writing was evocative, like how Ray writes their games too. Like the pick lists, like the tone, it was like a good matchup for game and book.
Sorry, I thought I had a point. I just unmuted for that's no reason. Um,
I'm sorry, Ray. I tried to trick you into this game so that I could make these accusations in person, but we'll just have to make these accusations like via this chat indirectly.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure you're watching this, which I hope you are. Hello. Uh, hi. Um, but yeah, it's I had a, oh yeah, I was trying to think of like a point of like again going back to like when I first read it, when the abrasiveness got to me, because there was like at the start it was kind of giving me vibes of like not generic but like kind of like 90s not rad but like edgy cyberpunk. um the way the way it was like, oh man, we're in this kind of like club, fight club, and I've got all these systems, all these threats, and there's guns all over the place and whatnot. It really had that vibe. And it reminded me of the opening of Neil Stephenson's The Diamond Age, which is meant to be post-cyberpunk, and it starts with this skater skating to buy a new mod for his skull gun, and, that was Neil Stephenson taking a piss out of cyberpunk at the time. But it did remind me of that, and I did think like, if not for the fact that the writing is like much more, it feels far more deliberate for that to not have been an accident. I may have thought, I did think, oh, this is gonna be a bit of a struggle. I don't know if I was gonna like this, but then the way that like, oh yeah, no, this is like part of the theme. Like, when you write it in such visceral kind of like detail, it doesn't feel. I mean, it's a kind of edgy, but it doesn't feel cool. You know, it's not like badass. It feels like very lived in. That's not to say it doesn't go into that, because later on there's that point where Maya gets new arms and Pimento asks if she wants gun arms, and he's just like, "Fuck yeah!" Because it also makes the point that, you know what, cyberpunk is about the commodification of bodies by the capitalist system, but gun arms are kind of cool. You know, they are kind of cool. Can't get away with that. Because like I remember there's a Twitter thread going around about how someone's saying that, hey, I'm not interested in gun arms. I was more interested in like how you have to pay monthly for a liver unless it stops working. And someone made the point that like if you would go back to Neuromancer, one of the plot points was the protagonist kind of like liver being replaced by one that was like defective, and the company was like, well, you're gonna have to do this job for us unless you want to get a proper liver. So it has kind of been there, along with Orientalism and furries. But well, there you go, that's cyberpunk for you. But I do like that, like it was kind of like writing, this book was kind of like writing that line, and I think like yeah, it very much makes the point that like this very much, it does feel like, yeah, a cyberpunk kind of like novel written, you know, a modern cyberpunk novel, like written in now, like knowing that like, yes, this genre is about the commodification of bodies, but there's some cool parts to it as well, and it's almost kind of reclaiming those parts of the 90s. Like, and I'm sorry, I'm going on like really long tangents. I just had a lot of thoughts because I just finished this book recently. Also, the way it describes AI is also, it does feel like very like 90s, 80s and 90s novels about the internet that don't know what the internet is going to be. So stuff like the information superhighway and how we're all gonna jack in and whatnot. Like, oh, this is gonna be a very random tangent. There's a paragraph I saw of a 90s Doctor Who novel were about him going into the information superhighway to fight aliens, and how this electronic program uncurled and hissed at the Doctor as it shot subroutines at him, and that's kind of like lame. But when you see it here, where the AI are described as like, yeah, subroutines caligularously reforming itself to form delight or whatever, better phrase than how I said it there. When done well, it kind of works. It does give, as much as we talk about the AI being kind of like not so above it all, it does give them a grandiosity and a certain kind of alienness to see stuff like, yeah, subroutines, algorithms, drivers, partitions, read-only files, very generic stuff to us now, kind of twisted into well, not unearthly, earthly forms, which is freaky. It's nice. Love an AI god. Also, yes, Maria in the chat saying Ayane is just so hot, incandescently hot. She is. Well, they all are in their own way. Which is, you know, that's kind of a given, I guess. Sorry, I kept talking for so long. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if that's how this is meant to go.
I don't have as much of a cyberpunk background. I probably like drift in occasionally with like some media every once in a while, but like the subroutines, the way that like that part of it was written made me think a lot of the card game, like Netrunner, which has like subroutines. You're trying to break like different like walls that people set up. And so that was where I was coming from with all of that stuff. And it does, I think, like give them their own kind of, it does set them apart in that way, in the like, this is how a computer works, how this works. But I also really like how that's used with like Elise as someone who was like human and is now interacting as a ghost or whatever in the machine. Like the way that like you and like her chapters, we like get the initiate like command multiple times, and we see like how running Elise's whatever commands or whatever, how that affects like what we learn of Elise, and then like later on, just like the way that she does that thing with like that part of Pimento to make it have some sort of like sense of self, like just the way that Elise interacts with the machine parts was like a cool, I feel like a cool melding of the like humanity and AI technology thing. Like I just thought it was really cool interaction of those two things.
Yeah, and I see we're kind of approaching the first hour, so something I wanted to check in on. I think probably we'll start to transition here, but I wanted to know, like from other folks, Maria, Leandro, if there were any other kind of subjects or things about the book you wanted to talk about that we haven't hit on yet.
The main thing that comes to mind is we mentioned like Pimento, mentioned Elise. Why don't we talk about the main POV, the one we see this story the most? Poor old Maya, um, who is who the one we see the story the bulk of the most, and yeah, it's not pretty. Because for those who don't know, she's the one who's stuck with Rita and has this incredibly toxic relationship with her, and she is like someone who again, I didn't want to the start, but she was incredibly abrasive. She's incredibly abrasive, like and the way she projects herself to the world. It's the way she kind of like talks about how, you know, it's much more simpler for her if like if all she does is like, you know, shoot things, kill things, fight things. She's so hardcore. Yeah. And the way we watch that kind of like hardcoreness kind of like break down throughout the book, the way it's kind of like tested, the way it's kind of like it's implied very clearly that like she knows this attraction to Rita is fucked up, it's messed up, it's not good for her, it defies logic, but but all Rita has to do is like kind of like smile and give her like a scrap of attention, and she comes. I mean, she compares herself to as a dog, basically, or who I don't want to really like as messed up as it was. Like she compared herself to be like a gun. You know, she's a weapon, and the way that she has to reckon with breaking away from that, which that is kind of like the core of the story for me, is like, as much as, you know, we talked a lot about the cool stuff about AIs and whatnot, the core of this is just this is getting over trauma, I feel, and specifically Maya's trauma is the lens we see through that, because yeah, in that break everyone else had more or less tried to move on, maybe not in the most healthiest ways, like Constance, why did you become a cop? Come on. Um, and everyone calls them out for that. Um, but the way, yeah, we see how Maya just kind of like try and ask better of herself, or like get to the point of asking for better of herself. And the way it culminates at the end was, I actually did, I did good, big a fist bump once it got to the end, and it figured out how it culminated. Um, it was nice. I don't know. What do y'all think of Maya?
Yeah, I like the idea that you kind of pull in this the way she talks about herself as a dog, as a gun, because like those are abusive things, but they're also kind of ways for Maya to sort of excuse her own toxic behavior a lot of the time. Because if you're a dog or a gun, you know, you're not doing any of this shit. someone else is doing it and you're just the one that's carrying it out. You know, Maya doesn't kill people, Rita does.
And that's caught up by Rochelle's wife. Like, yeah, so I heard about toxic masculinity. It was a bit on the nose, but that the way Maya kind of like is forced to confront this is having to deal with one of her comrades, her comrade's widow, who has a son with her. I think that was a bit on the nose, but it was like a nice corrective, because it is kind of the point where, like, if Maya like really responds badly to this, that it's kind of like a point of no return. Because as much as, like, you know, a protagonist can be unlikable, there is kind of like a line there. But yeah, yeah, it is. It does make the journey to, like, again, the payoff. The one thing I won't spoil, because we've spoiled quite a lot. The payoff to that was nice.
Don't worry, I'm writing at the top that there are spoilers for this book
Okay.
at the top of the video.
All right, okay.
If you decide to watch a book discussion group video and are like, oh, there's going to be any spoilers in here, I'm sorry, but man, I mean, that's on you.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, we've spoiled a lot. I will say to anyone, I think anyone who's watched this can clearly tell they should go read this. We recommend this to those who would like this kind of, like, you know, unabashedly kind of like angry queer sci-fi, kind of like just confronting trauma in a way, but like trying to find a way out. It's very good. Oh yeah, okay. Spoiler, I guess. Yeah, there's a big kiss at the end. There we go. Love conquers all. Turns out.
It's so good. Yeah.
The question I had is which mouth.
Yeah, I did have that question also. Like, all of them? Which what? Anyway.
I mean, you know, you just go for the one that your mouth
Maybe
lines up with.
True, that's true. All those,
it's
like,
really helpful for like a height difference, you know.
Exactly.
I really need to find some fanfic of this, you know, like the kissing down the cheek, like just there's mouths there. You can, anyway. I really like Maya. One of my favorite tropes in fiction is just like the extremely loyal person. And this hit that, but then it like twisted it in a painful and like horrible way. Like we've said, like there's nothing healthy at all about the relationship that they have. And I liked that exploration of it. Like, what do you do if the person you depend on wholeheartedly for your identity and purpose is like manipulating you? And so like it was very rewarding at the end to see like the payoff of the struggle we've seen these characters go through. And like, I don't know if what their aftermath will look like. It kind of ends at like like one of those endings that's just like we don't see what happens next. So like I think there's a cat. I think I just liked this like sense of Maya that we got that was just like railing against this like cage of her body, or like the cage of like the circumstances, and like to see her push at it in so many different ways. I enjoyed the character, and I enjoyed just like the constant profanity that we got to read as part of who Maya is. But yeah.
I'd also really like that, like, to tell that story, they didn't give like there wasn't an attempt to make Rita, you know, have like a hidden having like hidden debts. Like sometimes no, you're sometimes no, your abusers is just kind of just be an asshole. And breaking away from them is you know, it's a good thing, you know.
No, man, she was just gonna burn your soul for eternity.
Yeah.
That's the whole relationship there.
I mean, there is like there is a poetic niceness to burning through the universe. That's the 200 years of the Dirty Dozen. It's just like, it's just, it turns out there was like a bed of toxicity there that was gonna break them at some point because their leader was an asshole to quite a degree. And, yeah, that was kind of like the main thing I wanted to bring up and talk about. Their own Maya.
Cool. Yeah, Maria, did you have anything else you wanted to bring into the discussion? Otherwise, we'll go to break here. Also, no pressure. If you have a thing over the break you realize,
Yeah.
feel free to bring it in.
I mean, I think mine were just gonna be, I also really like the other other characters of the Dirty Dozen that we got to meet and like how different they all are. Like we get Ayane, who I don't even really know what her job is. Aside from being super hot running like a fight club and then like connecting to the conversation in terrible ways. And then like just verdigris being a pop star and having like played so much with like the artificial like part, like the hair, the mouth, just like all of who verdigris is like a performance I think is really cool. And yeah, like Constance, why did you become a cop? But also Constance and Ayane, I think like sad feelings, many things. I think just like the bits of the other characters that we got to see in the novel were very like, I liked them and I wish like there was a little bit more of them, like the constant wish, like why can't this just be like several stories within one book? But like flat, like just seeing how all of these very different people at one point had these relationships. I get this is going back to like the found family but wrong kind of thing. Yeah, it was just nice to get the glimpses of who they were, who they are, what they did with what they are, like the different ways that they interacted with being who Rita had made them. Like that was just very nice to see in the book. Or
yeah, there's like a sense of like I can see it like easily kind of being spun off into like a multi-book kind of like series. Add maybe a bit more couple more members of the Dirty Dozen alive and have it just culminate this arc where Rita becomes the big bad at some point. I can kind of see it like kind of becoming like that. I mean, in a way, I'm kind of glad it is just kind of the one and done because it's nice for that. Made it easy to read for this book, for this book club. As far as I did finish this book like an hour before we started. I'm sorry, but I think that's another thing. Like, yeah, I wish I could have seen a bit more, especially on like the hinted like backstory, like whatever happened to Joanna, like the pining between Ayane and Verdigris, especially the twist of the knife at the end, Constance and Elise, just like that.
Oh yeah,
Constance just going ride or die, I don't know, for Elise when she reveals herself. Also, the whole messed up setup of Elise being there inhabiting Rita's mostly dead, mostly artificial body with all the tubing on the ceiling attached to her spine. It's beautiful, but wow, that's messed up. Yeah, I don't know how if Ray would ever like this book. I don't know if I can recommend this to him.
We can just give him the summary.
Just give all of Maya's descriptions of Ayane.
Oh no, yeah, that they wouldn't bite after that. No, they're not better. They wouldn't be interested at all after that.
This is usually a shorter part, but I personally find it a fun exercise because I often have a lot of thoughts of games to pair with books I read. Um, and I certainly had a few thoughts when I was reading through this. Uh, you know, I'm curious though, before I jump in on a few of my ideas for alternate games that you could run this with. I'm wondering, Maria or Leandro, if either of you had some thoughts.
Not initially because I forgot that was the part that was part of the
That's okay.
exercise. It's like thinking about it, so I did have to look through itch. Um, I mean, it was hard to like not just go with the game that's suggested because literally the premise is the same. Once more, the void is exactly that. Obviously, the details are different because um, that once more the void is meant to slot into whatever sci-fi narrative you want to tell, but the the premise is exactly the same. So I guess if I had to think of like other RPGs, it would have to play more into like that kind of like the maximalist setting of it all. I have to look through my itch because I'm sure there are like some there that like come to mind. So well, give me a sec.
Yeah. For me, it was a game, the one that came to mind first because I played it most recently, aside from Once More to the Void, was Orbital Blues. Just the like space outlaw crew vibes of it. And I feel like Orbital Blues is flexible enough that you could have like the messed upness of this world in it, from like the point of view of the characters, and you can interact with like the different AI, I'm sure. But like the thing about it, I think, was just like Orbital Blues has like the troubles and like your blues and sad music plays and like that. I think it would go with maybe uh like parts of the setting. Like Ayan is like Fight Club, um like uh maybe it could be something for like their past before coming into this book, like back when they were the dirty dozen and there were actually a dozen of them, like that might be a game for that part of their history. But yeah, I'd have to think more about how to get like the other parts of the game, of the story, like the vibe of like just horrible space stuff overwhelming you. um
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking of was, the obvious scum and villainy, which is a quick one I'd go to. But I was also thinking for like a shorter thing of One Last Job, which is kind of it's more geared towards a one shot, but it also has a very similar premise where it's sort of, I'd say, vaguely like not what's the word, setting independent, but the basic premise is that you play a group of criminals who have come together after after a big failed job to do one last job that will finally make everything right, get you all what you want. uh and one of the things that made me think back to that in particular is that there are a lot of things like you have traits that people can flash back and like remember things about the last job to give you traits. That made me think of One Last Job, that really kind of meshes with this kind of in media res of the all-consuming world.
I just like looked around vaguely and then I had some more thoughts, especially because you're talking about like flashing back in memory. I guess this isn't necessarily the whole book, but like on like the idea of like some of aspects of the book, like the clones. Maybe this isn't it though. I guess like games, like a genre of games about like remembering parts of who you were before, I guess would be like to emulate Elise's story or point of view. I guess that would be what it would be. or like the other people who are trying to figure out who they are. There's like Anamnesis, which is like a solo game about memory loss and like remembering who you are and coming to your identity and like learning parts of your past. And then there's just like a very small like itch game called In Another Life, where it's like an AU, like if you're in another life, you roll. It's like a one move game. You roll to see what you remember. I think it's been a long time since I played it, but like things like that would be interesting to explore, like aspects of what would it be like to be a character who is like downloading parts of who they are from somewhere after they've been uh killed or something like that.
But I didn't really, my mind had like focused on the AI horrible world part rather than like the dirty like criminal side. So my first thought was like, there's a Forged in the Dark game called Hello World, by Charles Simon. It's more about like probably like Elise's story because it's more of a transistor kind of like if everyone's played that video game, but it's about kind of like these AI programs in this kind of like immortal city. One would say a conversation between them, and how they kind of live about. So it kind of like has like the same vibes. Other than that, what else was I looking at? Um, it's not the same vibe, but there's one I've always going to want to try from Ostrich Monkey Games called Death Grind Mega Structure. It's because it's set in kind of like a post-human kind of like world billions of years ago in this kind of like a hyper saturated expanding city that's like under siege by like machine gods and whatnot. Like it's not exactly, it has the same vibe. It's not like hyper maximalist, hyper kind of like um gross gross and that kind of like yeah, hyper saturated kind of vibe because it's based on a manga called Blame, which is about this like humanity billions of years in the future. The solar system is slowly being converted to a giant Dyson sphere, and you're kind of like all the humans are kind of like, they're tiny in the eyes of these like endless machine gods. So that's where like my mind kind of like went, and not really to like the crime side. Although like I guess like in terms of like other Forged in the Dark games, Fraser Simon's Hack the Planet is kind of would be kind of like vibe. It's a different like vibe because it's more about climate change, cyberpunk, but it still has the same vibe of like these like criminals who do like jobs together, who also can like get all cybered up and whatnot. Fraser Simons also wrote The Veil. Different vibe from this, for sure. It's much more thinky compared to the all not all guns blazing, but most guns blazing vibe of the all-consuming world. But Hack the Planet kind of like strikes kind of like the same nerve of yeah, kind of like cybered up criminals.
I'm trying to remember this game that I vaguely remember was like on Zine Quest like a few years ago. Was like Dungeon Bitches or like something about like angry queer people or angry queer
Yes,
women
that's
in like
also
a
the one I was
dungeon
thinking
with
of.
like it, I remember I think it was like super like gory, super like visceral feeling. Like, is
Yes,
that what
I
it's
should
called?
note Dungeon Bitches. If you have all the I'm just gonna say all the content warnings on that before you go into it. There it is a lot, and it definitely feels like it meshes with this.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I just remember the vibes from like the whatever it was. Like when I saw that, it was like that seems like it would work well for very messed up people.
Yeah, Dungeon Bitches was weird because like I was not as much put off by like all of like the visceralness of it, but I was like, wow, this is actually like the dungeon side is actually very non-abstract. Like I was not expecting like a kind of like encounter tables and things like that.
Is space a dungeon? Could space be a dungeon?
What was that?
Could the inside, I was like, could space be a dungeon? Could the inside of an age ship be a dungeon? Or it could be
Yes.
like the cloning pool be a dungeon? Rita's gauntlet of pain and trauma.
The dungeon of our lives. But yeah, cool. So with that kind of talking about the game we are going to be playing with, which people have mentioned, and I have as well, is Najati's Once More Into the Void, which is a game sort of that he kind of notes is like his big touchstones are Picard and Mass Effect 2. It is a game where you play where one player plays it is a GM-less game, I should say, where one player takes on the role of a captain and the other take on the role of their once loyal crew members who were all kind of hurt when the captain just kind of walked away from the life. But now there's some great threat to the galaxy that's returned, and the captain has to recruit everyone again for one more trip into the void to save the galaxy. We'll be modding that obviously a little bit for our group of space criminals. But that's kind of the general premise of Once More Into the Void. I'm wondering for folks like and maybe I'll open up the doc here to kind of we might say this is our palette, to use microscope terminology, of things that people want to kind of see brought over from like ideas or setting elements or things from the all-consuming world, and things they'd rather kind of leave behind or play down.
Yeah, I think I do want to bring up I think I mentioned near the start, when I was reading it, I had conflicting thoughts of how it translates in RPG. I think my main conflicting thought is I don't know if I can deal with a captain as toxic as Rita. I think maybe it obviously works into the book, but I was thinking about it oh my god, if this there must be, if these were players, there must have been some massive out of character communication going on to make sure this is a-okay with everyone. Everyone must be very comfortable with each other to be playing this way. I know I think probably between the three of us we played with some broken characters before, but I don't know to the extent that this book does. So maybe that's gonna be something something we can kind of leave out.
Yeah.
Depending on who plays the captain, but that's just, yeah, I don't know if I want to go that far. I remember the last time, sorry, just remembering something, but the last time I played Once More Into the Void, yeah, there was that kind of there was a vibe of yeah, the captain had this contentious relationship with one of the crew members who resented them for putting them into this life, and it actually ended with that crew member killing the captain. It was tragic. You were in that game, Maria.
Yeah, I just remembering.
It's a fun time. But Rita is next level toxic. So
yeah. I mean, for me, I think they're very broad things to start off with before I can think of anything. I don't think that I'm interested in recapitulating the story in its exactitude, because I feel that's something that would be easy to do almost with Once More Into the Void, just because of the way that at least the beginning, the recruitment phase or whatever is set up. It could be very easy to do it exactly or very close to it, but I think I'd be more interested in exploring possibilities. The world is something that I'm interested in keeping. What's up with technology and the the inequalities there, but like
Okay.
doing exactly like the story of this is not
Yeah.
something that
I
think
was gonna
like,
ask. I was gonna
yeah, yeah,
ask because you said the world is something I want to keep. I'm like,
yeah,
do
yeah.
you mean the setting or Dimmu Borgir?
Oh, I mean, you can keep that if you want. I don't care about. I don't have strong feelings about
But I
that.
definitely. I'm gonna make a note. Let's not steal a planet as
Yeah,
our
let's
goal.
not steal a planet.
It would be so badass though, but it's been
It would be
done.
so badass.
There are a lot of other badass things we can steal.
Yeah, but like definitely interested in keeping like all of the lore or whatever of the lore people are interested in also,
Yeah, like I'm
because it's just
definitely.
interesting.
I definitely agree that I'm definitely interested in, and I kind of will make I guess a sub note here, like of, but I'm interested in how the clones work, and and like the kind of weirdness and the kind of like idiosyncrasies of the AIs. But that's something I definitely would find it cool to preserve a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how do other groups of clones
Yeah.
deal with that? Basically, like having an effective kind of immortality, dying and coming back again and again.
Yeah, and I guess that's something like we'll maybe get into this during character creation, but I guess it's something I wanted to bring up now. Like, do we want to all be clones, or do we want to be open to like a greater range of characters when we're making our characters, or do we want to keep to that idea? Because like, for example, would someone be interested in thinking about what would it look like for like an AI like Pimento to actually be a part of the crew, as opposed to like
Mhm.
this guy that kind of gets attached to them against his will?
Yeah, I think like it would be fun to do all clones, but like if someone wants to not do a clone, I wouldn't be against it. Like I'm flexible in that regard. Like if people want to try, yeah, that kind of dynamic.
Yeah,
which not
one
you
person
Yeah.
can be a Vulcan.
Yeah. I also like the idea like preserving the like themes, kind of like, oh, what makes them human, like what makes sentience, like I think like the themes are very cool in the book, and so like if people are up to like exploring like the humanity or like the commodification of the flesh, like aspects of that, I think are things I'd like to at least see thought about during character creation.
Cool.
I also have one more.
Go ahead.
I think,
this is
yeah,
not.
this is just so many. I also kind of like I the way that they have history and like the uh the thing that happened in the past affecting who they are now. So I think it'd be cool if I don't remember Once More Into the Void enough to remember exactly how much of like what we know about our past and the connections we have together, but I'm excited to see like play to find out what that is, or just like the sense of time having passed being real and having an effect on who we are now as opposed to who we were then is something that I thought was I really like that.
Like, I'm
Love
looking
a
at
passage
the
of time.
oh, you love a passage of time.
I do.
I was looking at how I realized, oh yeah, wait, no, there are playbooks. So I mean, it'd be fun to see how the clones. I guess it doesn't matter really. Clones can be different things.
Uh-huh.
No, the clone playbook. We're all in.
Is there a clone playbook? That probably isn't.
Nah.
Can't
I mean, I guess
remember.
there's kind of, well, I mean, it's I guess
I
it's
think they're
weird. The way
open.
clones are in this, I guess you could kind of say like in like a non everybody's clone game, like this weird genetically engineered person could maybe be the unique I forget what they're called. Like the weird, like the weirdo.
Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm looking at the playbooks now. There's the Steadfast. That's clearly Maya.
I need to
Um,
like get the updated version of this apparently.
Yeah, I'm gonna be sending out during this week the current version that I have through the Kickstarter. So because I think that's also it. You mentioned in the email that 3 players is like the hard mode.
That
I
was
think
from the
Ray,
old
yeah,
one.
Ray has
Yeah.
rebalanced it since
Okay.
then with this new version.
Cool.
I think so that like 3 players does not necessarily mean you're going to lose. Or that like you'll win, but most of you will die.
I mean, I'm not opposed to death or bad endings.
yeah, you're not opposed to a
Bad.
bit of tragedy there.
I'm not opposed to a bit of tragedy, it turns out.
Yeah, I guess the final word of clones is like if people want to be clones, become character creation. That's great.
I'm trying to find my copy because I backed the Kickstarter, so it's somewhere around here. I just have so like how many times have I downloaded this game? So many. I have a downloads folder with like 2-3 copies.
You want to look for update 18.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
My games downloading habits are terrible. I don't remember where I save it on my computer, so I just download
I
it
just have a
again.
downloads folder that just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that as well. And part of me is just like, what's the point of putting them in folders? I have like the digital link somewhere. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know the internet could collapse and then those links will be lost like tears in the rain. but-
Upload them to the conversation.
And- Is the conversation just Twitter? Oh God.
Oh,
please,
God.
No.
Are
It
the
can't
age
be it.
ships just Twitter bots? Just gone.
No. Well, no, because the thing is like the conversation is like it's like it has to it's the be all and end all. We don't really have that because
Yeah.
people are yeah.
That's true.
Because it's definitely
That's
like
true.
it's definitely weird. Well, yeah, it's definitely kind of open because like the conversation is both like described as like a hive mind, but you're also not always connected to it.
Yeah.
Like I guess
Also-
they're all computers, so I guess technically they're basically all servers running the conversation is why it is the way it is.
I also might have missed this again, but in the book, when people connect to the conversation or like what happened to Johanna and like Ayane, I think like, does it hurt to like connect? What was
I think it
with
was
that?
because what they were doing was they were trying to hijack they were basically trying to hijack an entire aid ship, and the aid
Mm.
ship's security basically
Okay.
was like nope, and like basically like sent a power surge or something
Yeah. Okay.
through their system to burn them alive
Yeah.
or something.
Makes sense.
Honestly, like I have like ideas of like, all right, what aspects of the world do we keep in? When we just said, oh, let's just keep the world, I'm like, yeah, that kind of answers.
Yeah.
Sorry
like-
for making it
like-
too general.
No, that's
Nah.
okay. Like this is kind of the why I asked this question, because sometimes like with our run of Hearts of Wulin, a lot of people were not like comfortable didn't have like comfortable in the sense of like didn't have a lot of knowledge of like what would be like period Indian like kind of trappings. So we're still doing kind of a Wulin take because there's a lot more kind of like a greater archive for everyone to draw on.
Yeah.
This makes it easier if we just like, just take the book setting and we're just gonna play in it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, cool. But yeah, does anyone have anything else they wanted to add? Because otherwise, I think that it seems like we're kind of wrapping up here. So I wanted to thank Maria Leandro for showing up. It was a very fun conversation. I had so much fun this seeing y'all. It's been a while since I gotten to chat with either of you. So I really enjoyed getting the opportunity to see you both again because you are such great people.
Likewise, Stephen. Like this is absolutely it's also lovely to like be able to chat with you again, and like as much as I enjoy playing role playing games with you, it's nice to just chat, you know, um, and just talk and and I'm really looking forward to this game because now we've chatted and caught up, and now we've got this ridiculous great setting and this ridiculous great game to frame this around. I'm really looking forward to see what we come up.
Cool. I'll be seeing y'all then.